Hello, guten Morgen. How are you? I think I've got a little bit of an echo, but I think we're okay. Cool. Welcome. It's been a long time. But I got my coffee. Yeah, so I haven't been here for a while, and I finally had a moment where I could just chill and relax. And I would say, as most of you know, I have been moving over this summer. I really hope my audio is going okay. Um, because I have no idea. I really need to just sit down and work out the audio because I'm flying by my seat of my pants and I don't know how I sound because I don't have a monitor coming back at me at the moment. So I need to kind of fix that all up. But um, yeah, I am in Colorado. It's been quite a summer. I think I've done the drive back and forth between um, Colorado and Georgia 4 times this summer, and I'm getting ready to do it a fifth time. Anything that doesn't make it out on this fifth trip is staying behind. So, but yeah, so I'll be heading back to Atlanta, mostly getting the house ready for sale and getting the last bits of stuff. But it was good. This week was like the first time I was able to just slow down and be like, okay, everything's in its place. The house is functioning as a studio, of course. Um, I got a little video that I put of a little spin around the studio that's on my reels, and yeah, basically my whole house is a studio, and it feels good to be that intense back in the art again. Um, One of the reasons why I moved to Colorado is for the longer winters where I can just seriously just buckle down and work on things. Um, my biggest complaint about Georgia is the winters are too short, and and I know that sounds crazy to some people, but I really, I really like the winters. As long as I have a nice, warm, comfortable, cozy place to sleep and to exist within, um, I don't mind going out into the cold. I actually enjoy going out in the cold. Um, I've been training most of this, well, September into October. I've been training by. I'm really looking forward to it. The cool thing is, everything is within walking distance of my house, including the bourbon bar. So, I've got places where I can go hang out if I need to get out of cabin fever. But the the house is perfect for me. Um, I mean, I'm in the studio right now. You can see some of the paintings behind me, but the whole house is a studio. I'm almost running out of wall space with all paintings that I am working on. So, because the motto is if it's in my house, it's free game. But I like having stations set up. Like I work on multiple projects at the same time, so I have them all set up in different locations so that I can just go up and work on them. You know, the biggest thing that I try to stay true to with my creative path is that when I get inspired for something, 30 seconds to get onto the canvas or to get at it or to start working on that project. Because you've got about 30 to 60 seconds before the um the creative, like, oh, dream, like waking up out of a dream and the dream fading away. When that inspiration comes, you need to jump on it and get on that canvas. If you have to spend 15 to 20 minutes setting up your stuff or to set up the project, by the time you finish setting up, you have lost what you are trying to capture. So, so that's just good advice. If you're planning to be a professional artist or a dedicated artist, you can also be a dedicated amateur artist where it's just you're doing it just for fun and recreation and your life doesn't depend on it. Um, it's just good to have a space set up in your house or apartment where you can have it ready to go. And I know that's tough, but you do the best that you can. Um, Even if it's a journal, you have a dedicated journal area so that when that inspiration comes, you jump into it and you start it. It's almost in a sense ritualistic because it's like when you have a creative idea or you have a creative inspiration on a project you're working on, it's like having a fish on the line. And if you jerk too fast or if you wait too long, that fish can slip off. So you kind of gotta coerce it as you're getting ready to reel it in and capture it. And the canvas could be the net if you want to look at it that way. And um, and it's a good practice. Like in my creative flow, I have certain little tiny rituals like that I do to help, and it's all about helping and assisting the mind stay focused and not letting monkey mind come in and take control over the situation. And basically what monkey mind is the chatter. When you're trying to do something, when you're trying to work, when you're trying to focus, monkey mind is the thing that comes in, you're not good enough, or hey, let's go do this, or hey, let's go do that, or hey, what is the square root of pi? I don't know. um so like especially when you're going to sleep. So it's good to create like these little sort of tiny habits and rituals that you do to try to capture whatever it is you're trying to bring in with your creative energy. Because I tried in the beginning when I lived in a small apartment, and I was just like I was living in a really nice Buckhead apartment back in the late '90s, and it was just like everything was just clean. It was everything just was not dirty, and it was really really hard to paint in that type of environment because there's so much anxiety about getting paint on something, especially if it's not yours. And you know when you have to set up your art gear when the inspiration comes, you pretty much are going to lose whatever it is. Unless you're planning to do a dedicated long 4 hour sessions are really a good amount of time that you need to have on the canvas to feel like you've had a good session on the canvas. And um, and I try to keep it in blocks of 4 hours now because I'm 52 and doing the same thing for 8 hours straight is really, really difficult at this point in my life. So, like I said, monkey mind and ADHD creeps in, and it's a thing. So, um, but you gotta be sort of focused in having a space set up that is dedicated to your creative practice, no matter what it is, and keep it clean. And you keep coming to, like, if it's a desk or if it's a canvas area or if it's a corner of your apartment, you know, just you don't even have to do anything, just keep engaging it every day. Just go there and assess your work. You know, just like, one of the things that I like now in my studio where I have everything set up and all the projects, when I'm doing my morning coffee routines, I just go around to the different stations and I assess my work. And I give about an hour to just kind of do whatever, and explore it. So, um, I've got probably about 5 easels, 3 desks, and like about 40 paintings on the walls that are in various states of completion. So, but you gotta keep it in your presence on a daily basis, even if you're just looking at it. You have to keep that wheel spinning because it's like the creative muscles are like physical muscles, and you know if you just let them sit, they're going to atrophy and they're going to kind of cool off and they're going to go cold on you. And when you're going to want to have this inspiration that comes in, and your engines are just going to be cold. And usually in that situations, you throw a lot of stimulants into your body, like coffee or such, to kind of get there fast. But it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. You gotta respect your creative flow. It's an intense, it's an intense life. It really, really is. I am in my creative flow. I'm 8 to 12 hours a day is basically how I'm producing. I'm producing every day, constantly. Whether or not I am actually working on a project, or I am thinking about it in my mind, or I'm working on something for a client, or I'm reviewing or assessing something. It's the idea of being a professional artist sounds lovely and divine, but it is a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of dedication, and it's a lot of times of being by yourself. And you know you got to be comfortable with yourself. You got to be happy being alone. You have to be comfortable being alone, because you know even if you're in a studio space with another artist on a canvas, you're kind of living in a multiverse with them, because that artist is in their own little world, and you're in your world, and you're there, and you gotta you know you gotta dedicate to it. There's a lot of sacrifices you have to make. I've lost a lot of relationships because the art came first, and that's the hard fact, is that in my life, my well-being is my artwork, it's my therapy, it's my meditation, it's the extension of myself. And if I'm ever in a situation where that is compromised, I start to be unhappy, and I start to teach them how to do art. And the problem that I have with that is I'm not traditionally trained. I don't know. I don't do it based upon how you're taught. I mean, I could teach you how to paint like I do, but I would never be able to teach you how to traditionally painting and I had to produce 3 paintings for a multimedia class, and I actually liked it, but I was just like, I didn't have the patience. I knew I didn't have the patience in that time to dedicate to how much I was going to have to learn, and I just kind of let it go. And it wasn't until probably my late 20s that things kind of started changing in my head. And all of a sudden, a lot of visual information started downloading into my mind on a constant basis. It still comes on a constant basis. But it was like these flood doors opened up and all of these visions started coming into my imagination, and they were overloading my circuits, and I I I had to get it under control. And they were coming in mandala forms, like coming through dreams and just coming through meditations. I had just started meditating and opening up to doing yoga and stuff and relaxing my mind and relaxing my body. And then that just opened up a door where a lot of stuff started coming in. So I started using color. I first started with black and white, doing black and white mandalas. Then I ultimately was moving into color after about 3 to 4 years of working in black and white. When I was adding the color, I tried doing it with colored pencil or Prismacolor marker, and it was too slow. And I knew immediately after doing like two drawings, I'm like, this isn't going to work. I'm gonna need 25 lives to get all of this stuff out. And I remember there was this one moment where I was just like, shit, I gotta learn how to paint. I'm gonna have to learn how to paint. And it was the only way I was going to capture it. And it was roughly between 28 and 32 when I really was making that transition into opening up to more of a painting style of creativity coming out of the architecture. And believe it or not, architecture and painting use the brain in two different ways. So you would think they would complement each other, and certainly that's ways that they do. But if you're working with deadlines and you've got projects, jumping back and forth between a painting project and an architectural project can be exhausting, because I have to flip my mind in how it's working and how it's focused. And the way to balance it was I needed to go faster. All right, because I wasn't, like, by the time I was trying to get into the flow, I had already lost what it is I was trying to capture. It's like catching dreams. Painting is like catching dreams. And if you're not careful, they will get away. You will lose them. They'll just disappear on you. And you got to get your mind in, a specifically slow and patient state. One of the other benefits that I've noticed of moving to Colorado is that I've had to slow down not just my body, but also my mind. And I've noticed that, like, even like I'll run up the stairs to catch the phone, and when I get to the top of the stairs, I'm like catching my breath because of the lack of oxygen, and I feel like I need to take a nap, but my body is completely fine and wired, and my muscles are wide awake. I've also found the same thing with thinking, where I've had to slow down my thinking up here at 8,500 feet above sea level, that if I start thinking too fast, my brain, it's like a computer freezing up. My brain will just freeze up if I start thinking too fast, or if I start trying to juggle too many thoughts. So it's forced me to have to kind of get more in a regular sort of streamline basis, and which is actually what I need. I mean, moving to Colorado is really about fine-tuning my artistic practice and getting focused on it, because I think the body doesn't listen to that. And I had started a bunch of canvases, and the biggest problem that I had when I first started painting was, like, I could sit down where I was creating something amazing, and then I would paint until I collapsed from exhaustion, and which I used to do in college with architecture. Um, but the next day I would wake up with that piece and I wouldn't know, like, I only knew how to start paintings. So I went from a series, like, from a time period of about 2003 to 2005, where I was just starting paintings but never finishing paintings. And by the time 2006 rolled around, I had roughly 30 paintings that were all started, and I had no idea how to finish them. So, I don't know if I'm getting ahead or not. I'm just going wherever I'm going with this one. We're at the halfway mark. So, the next thing that I did was, you know, I was, I, the painting was really tickling my desires. And I was loving it. I was loving bringing it in. It was causing some problems on the architecture side because there were a couple of things that were happening. At that time period, the architecture software was going through some serious growing pains, going from two-dimensional software trying to get into the three-dimensional realm. And this was early aughts up to about 2007. And the architecture software started to get so frustrating and glitchy that it was just awful. I would spend an hour every day dealing with crashes with the computer and then trying to recover lost work. And I kept escaping into the painting because that's really what I was wanting to do, but I was a 2006. I moved into a duplex, kind of like how I am right now. And basically, I moved out of an apartment where I just had two lawn chairs, a PlayStation, a blow-up mattress, and nothing but canvases on the wall. And because like I was just dedicated to like I'm like, what is this? What does all of this mean? I needed to understand this new thing in my life. I was 28 years old. I was told that it was too late to start anything new after 25. And I was having this desire to completely switch my profession and just go completely nuts and leave a lucrative business behind that I built up over 10 years and just go into something that was like childish abandon. And I was very confused. So, roughly about 2006, I got into a really cool duplex with some friends that were on the other side of the duplex. And we lived there for probably about 3 years. And it was then in that house that I really got to explore the artwork and then try to find a balance with the architecture that I was struggling with. And yeah, I think I got a little bit too far ahead of this story, but I say this story so many times, it's just good practice. And, I don't know if nobody's, and I don't know. I think I might be out of oxygen and too much coffee. So, I was thinking I was a fool. All right. I already had most of my family telling me I was a fool, but they were being very nice and they were being very patient with me. And they're like, well, let's let him figure this stuff out, because I had to figure this out in 2006, and I just started dedicating to developing what's called a practice with it. And as you're sort of making that transition between amateur artist and professional artist, it's like, okay, I like doing this, but I don't know if I could do this consistently on a daily basis. All right, it's just coming in spurts. like it's coming on the weekend, it's coming in the middle of the night, you know, how do I make this a business? You know, how do I incorporate this into my business of being able to support myself? And it was around roughly between 2006 and 2008 I really started, okay, what works for me? How do I learn? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? What little tiny projects can I do to strengthen what I need to do to get to where I want to be? And out of it comes your artistic practice. All right. And that is the key to your success. Your artistic practice is a vessel. It is the vessel that you travel in your life with. And it's what anchors you in reality. It anchors you into a sense of prosperity, being able to produce in a way that you're supporting yourself. So, um, solid is like thinking that you're going to do a New Year's resolution on December the 31st and it's going to stick by February. All right. You gotta keep spinning it. You gotta keep falling down and picking yourself back up. You gotta keep starting that journal, stopping, and then starting again. You gotta walk away from it and then come back to it. Like with everything, it's a slow, grinding evolution that you go through. And you start finding the things that work. You start finding the things that bring you back to it, the things that anchor you into it, that keep you in that creative flow. Um, and you get rid of what's not working. All right. The hardest thing to do as an up and coming emerging artist is that first time that you need to walk away from whatever it is you're creating, the canvas, the books, the writing, whatever it is. The hardest thing, that the first boss monster, well, one of the first big boss monsters that you face is when you've dedicated 3 to 4 years into your artistic practice and going down there, you set up your website, you set up your business, you got your branding, you got your trademarks, you put all of this energy into it, and then you get to the point where you're stuck and tired and you're exhausted and you're not happy with it. And it hasn't ended up the way that you thought it was. You're 3 to 4 years into your artistic practice and your professional art career and you're out of gas. The hardest thing is knowing that you like to step away for a few months, to breathe a little bit, to walk away from the canvas for 2 months, for 3 months, with the intention, like, you don't know if you're coming back. It is the scariest thing. Is like, I've dedicated all of this time. Everybody's going to tell me, see, look, they failed, you know, and it's like, you're a failure. Like having to walk away that first time from your creative practice, you feel like a failure. And then you go about 3 or 4 months and then something happens and it ignites up again, stronger than you've ever felt it before. And all of a sudden you're back in it. And then you realize that you just needed to rest the engines. And you weren't a failure. You actually are good. You actually are doing this. And you're like, oh, that's part of the process. You got to step away and rest the engines every once in a while. I mean, we are driven in the economy and the market and the tendencies of a capitalistic mindset that we need to be a constant machine producing, and we can't stop. We can't take a break. You know, we can barely take a break. You barely get lunch or whatever, or the ability to go see a doctor. You got to constantly push and push and push and push and push. You know, you got to have your hours validated and billable to every single project. You know, that's what it's like working in a creative firm. Every single, like, especially in an architecture firm, Every single hour of every single moment of your day needs to be quantified and validated and built towards a client, or your employer is going to be unhappy. You're given maybe 2 hours a week for maintaining your workflow. You know, it's like your employer doesn't want to pay you for, why are your files a mess? Because you don't pay me for filing. You don't pay me for maintaining my workspace. You get like, that's kind of what it's like working in an architecture firm. Everything needs to be billable to a client. You have to be constant, nonstop, boom, boom, boom. You're a machine. The creativity doesn't work that way. Working in an architecture firm is horrible. It just is. I knew 3 years out of college that I could not do it that way. And anyhow, but back to the point, you need to take a break and let the creative engines rest. And the first time that you come across it in your practice and in your professional career is the hardest, because it feels like the world is collapsing and you're giving up. And in the end, it's just, you needed to take a break. And it comes back. And I tell everybody, it's going to come back. You can't force it. You can put yourself in, like, you learn to be receptive of the coming back so that you pass through, I call them doldrums. They're creative doldrums. And a doldrum are these little pockets that are out on the ocean where there's no wind. So if you're in a sailboat and you go through a doldrum, there's no wind in your sails, you're dead in the water. No matter how hard you blow, you ain't gonna go. So, but you gotta be receptive and like the more you try to force it, the more it's not going to come. And it's the worst feeling in the world. It's like, you mean to make it work, I've got to let go even further? But it comes back. It always comes back. And it always comes back stronger. And you're like, oh, there you are again. Nice to see you. Welcome back. So, anyhow, I forgot to hit the record button, so bite me. But, no, it's been a while since I've been getting, onto the creative coffee thing on the weekends. Mostly because I don't have a really good internet connection in Colorado yet. I'm working on satellite that should solve the problem. But I've mostly just been tired from moving and settling in and trying to, feel like I am starting, my new life is in Colorado is starting. I'm not coming back. I'm pretty much going to be in Colorado for a while. I'm going to make this work. It's a lot of overhead having a studio where I have my studio, but the outcome and the production that I'm getting here and the connection that I'm getting, it's worth it. I also don't really have to drive anywhere, which is nice. I don't like having to constantly be in a car for an hour every day getting to and from work. I don't know how people can drive an hour commute to work. That's awful. I mean, you can say books on tape, radio, YouTube's, whatever. That's just bullshit. That's bullshit. All right. Maybe I should work on something. Maybe I should bring something up on the screen. Maybe I should... Oh yeah, that's where that is. All right. Why are you not? Problem is all of my monitors are different resolutions. And it's frustrating at times. It's supposed to work here. Oh, wow, look at that. It works. That's fantastic. All right. Circa fast forward 12 years to 2023, coming on 2024. So many little tiny things I need to sit down and maintain in my computer system. One of the most frustrating things that I've got with computers, with multiple monitors, is I get all of the monitors finally working the way that they're supposed. I want them to be working together with each other, and everything's set up, and then Microsoft throws through some sort of update, and then just things don't work the way that they used to again, and it gets frustrating again and again and again. So, but these are the stickers, and this is just me in Photoshop playing with them and how they are working with each other. And I now have book 4 in this. I now have book 4 kind of tied to this, and I've started working on book 5. You can kind of look at it this way. And you can kind of see that I've got a lot of books planned. I mean, basically, this format is how I am going to be curating my artworks and how I want people to be experiencing how all of the different art pieces work with each other. And then ultimately, I want to make a card deck out of them, story cards that you can use, somewhat like an oracle, but more sort of story-based rather than like mystical based, and sort of focused on stories from around the world of like how we have come to be, and ultimately showing that everything is pointing us in the same direction. That's ultimately how this whole story works with each other. And a lot of this goes all the way back to 2007, where finally after 2006, I had 30 to 40 paintings that I had started, but I had never finished. I was having problems finishing. So in 2007, I decided that I was going to do one painting in 2007. I was going to focus on one painting. I was going to make it a big painting. It was going to be my biggest painting that I had started to date. It was going to be 4 foot by 4 foot. And basically, I made the goal for myself. If I can finish that painting by the end of the year, I would have what it takes to take the next steps to being a professional artist. And I did. I actually ended up journaling it on LiveJournal. I think it's still out there somewhere in Russian land, because I think somebody in Russia bought LiveJournal. So, but anyhow, it was this first painting, Wandering Wheel, was where it kind of started. And I wanted to do an astrological wheel with the astrological glyphs. I wanted it to all be sort of like looking up into a old Renaissance cathedral type of feeling. So I had these ideas for it. And then I just started working on it. And with the intention that I was like, it was going to be the first, like ultimately the first painting that I finished, and it was. I did it. I went through the whole year. I focused on it, and then the next year I did it again with Sunstone, and that was 2008. That's when the crash of '08 happened. That's when all of the entire architecture and um, residential construction industry collapsed. So I ended up working on that painting solely for the year. And then I went into 2009 and did the Color Chakra. And then Music of the Spheres was next. And I kind of lost my wind a little bit after that. But it had already served its purpose. And I knew that I was like going to be a professional artist at that time. So after that 3 years in a row, for even starting the fourth year, I've actually come back and revisited these series of pieces where I'm continuing them. And if you can see them, it's like one is an astrological wheel, one is the Aztec sunstone, one is the Tibetan Kala Chakra, the Greek Pythagorean music of the spheres, and then I've got more of those pieces, and they're going to each be sort of the central arc of all of the smaller pieces that are going to be associated in, that collection of artwork. So this is how I'm going to be curating and presenting my artwork and putting them in sort of some sense of an order, and create ultimately an oracle deck out of them. So hopefully by spring, I'll have enough to start the oracle deck, and then everything will be just 8-card expansions that come every year after that. All right. I don't know if I'll be back on next week. I'll be back in Atlanta next week, so I definitely am planning on bringing Creative Coffee back for the winter months. So when I get back from Atlanta into Colorado this next round, I'm gonna. Damn, that bird going crazy. So